Welcome back, guys. This is episode 2 of the Labeled podcast.
Correct.
I think I just blew out my mic, so I'm a rookie, as you can tell. I think we left off at the last episode. What did we do? We talked about a little bit of our history.
Yeah, everything to kind of get to where Label started, when it started to open its doors.
So now we'll pass it off to Evan. Oh, wait. Evan was in
wasn't
sixth
there.
grade?
Yep.
Sixth grade? All right. Evan was in
Being
sixth
born,
grade.
yeah.
So I think he can't help us out. So I think where I want to start off is kind of bringing everybody up to speed that when we opened up Label, it wasn't like an instantaneous, here we are, to the public. It was more of a quiet, soft opening, I would call it. And I think you were invited, right?
Yep.
Justin, to that?
Yeah, you were working quite a few months before we even had that event at your first shop. Yeah. So that was quite a few months before the whole thing. I mean, you were doing projects way before then.
I had done the Camaro project, the one that was in CSR2 and the SET performance booth. That was a whole long story. I got my ass handed to me in that one. I learned some bad relationships or some bad channels to try to do business through going through that project, but I saw it to the end. It wasn't one that I was proud of when we were complete, but there were some good people that I met through it. And actually, we built that car in a guy's at-home shop just off of 52nd, I think, over by, what's the golf course? Maple
Hill.
Maple Hill, yeah. Yep. So I had still had the place on the, I sold the place on the east side and was staying down in Kalamazoo, and this was kind of the plan to, I bought a new Camaro at the time, and I was like, I'm going to build a wide body with this and maybe launch a parts program or show some people what, I'm capable of. And that was before I even thought about opening up, Label still at the time. It was more of, let's just build something and get it out there and see what can happen.
Yep.
So when we were finished with that, when we came back, I think I actually reached out to you to help us rewrap some stuff on that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I think the first job was just redoing the fender flares.
Yeah, the
I
flares.
Think that's what it was.
Yep.
And then, we ended up rewrapping that whole car at some point. But,
Right.
that was the very first project that you and I kind of took on together.
Yeah, what color was that?
3M Battleship Gray, 1080.
That's right. And at the time, I loved the color. There wasn't a lot of, like Nardo grays and stuff at the time.
Satin, too.
Yeah, satin.
Yep.
And then we did the gloss gray accents, and it was cool. It's one of those cars, to me, it holds more of like an emotional place rather than like I really love the car. I think it's a cool car. It's more of like a conversation piece because it's so crazy.
Yep.
And it being in the game. But it's definitely, compared to like what the Corvette is, not even in the same category.
Yeah, a whole different tier of car. But it's cool too, though, when we take it to events, which we rarely do nowadays. But when we do, like, there's still people that love that thing, and especially over on Woodward and all the people on the east side that are die hard Chevy guys. They just go crazy for that because it is a cool, really cool car.
Yeah,
like it's just unique. It's got an insane road presence. It's so wide.
So big.
It makes all sorts of crazy noises, but
it does. Yeah, so that was, I guess, the first car that I'll have gotten done over here, but not necessarily the first car at Label, because that car wasn't built inside the shop or at the shop or even before I had it.
Okay.
But when, if we fast forward to when Christina and I had the conversation, we were going to start a shop and try to go at it. That was the whole plan, to just go out, buy everything. There's no, monthly cost to anything. I didn't lease anything other than the building itself.
Yep.
Finish everything on the inside the way that I want, is within a reasonable budget, and then just open up and see what we could do. And the first client that we got, we were lucky enough to source that wide body M5. So,
F10 M5.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the first Label project.
Yep. And the first wide body project too, which was a prior design. Those guys actually reached out to me from Florida, ironically, where I used to be. I think we had run across each other's path at one point or another, and I actually flew down there and met with them in Pompano Beach, and had a conversation because this was the only one in North America, the kit that they had.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they never.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, they never built one in the States, only in Europe. There was a chance for us to fly down there. I think I was visiting a friend, and I was like, maybe we should get together and talk, So I got to meet the guy. He was the general manager at the time, and we met at a coffee shop, talked about everything, showed me some pictures. And for me, that was that first getting back into the relationship business, on a larger scale than just local, that I enjoyed doing. And of course, we need their support. So, the cost to take a little trip and meet with somebody face to face, to me always was worth it. So I figured, what the heck, it's going to be a big investment.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
It went well. We got the kit, and then started down that path of finding a body shop that could do the work. Because for those of you guys that don't know, we don't do our body work in house. That's something that we sub out. I've been in situations where I've had body shop in house. Not interested in managing that anymore. It was one of those things that the guys that always worked in the body shop, they had control of you. So if they decided they didn't want to show up, guess what? Your work didn't get done. And you still are paying them. And if you fire them, guess what? You don't have a body shop.
Yep.
So I learned over the span of 3 or 4 years that I did not want to be in the body shop business anymore. So for me, it was creating that relationship with a body shop that would kind of bring our vision to life and allow us to work side by side.
Yep.
And that seemed to work. And for those of you that don't know, it's a lot of exotic car dealerships that do not have body shop services. I think people think it's like a Chevy store or a Ford store.
Yeah.
The world out there is not like that. Some of the biggest, actually, where I worked, they're one of the biggest exotic dealerships in North America, and they subcontract every body shop job out to a small shop that you'd walk around the corner and you'd be like, this is where the car is?
Jeez.
But the guys did phenomenal work, right? So at the end of the day, it made more sense for those big businesses to say, we don't want to control that. We don't want to deal with, the OSHA, all the requirements with a body shop. Instead, they were like, we'll just sub it out and we have a business relationship. And if it goes sideways, then we go out and we find another business. So kind of the same model that I used here. And I learned that from actually that location.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's cool.
I did that. And then I thought having the body shop was the answer. So after I found that dealership was doing that, I got into the body shop business. And then the body shop business taught me why I didn't want to be in it. And I was like, you know what? These guys might have it figured out.
Yeah, just contract it out.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we do. And we've been through a couple different body shops. And I think each body shop has a learning curve with our work, right? And the parts that we bring and stuff like that. What was tough with that kit was it was fiberglass.
Yep.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And we changed a ton of the styling on the car. So I spent a lot of time over there. We cut stuff off, sanded it, they filled it. We changed stuff on the doors, on the front bumper. And ironically, I think, what did we have? We had issues with the sensors because it was a European, it was only built for European cars, so they didn't have sensors that we had on our cars. So each car needed sensors built, cut out, and then like a pod built.
Yeah, that was my first experience when, like, you and I would go over to the body shop, and then all of a sudden you're just like, hack this piece off, and I'm like,
right.
What are you talking about, dude? This is a nice Prior Designs body kit, and all of a sudden he starts hacking pieces off of it and like changing the styling. I'm like, I literally thought you're just going there to get it painted and thrown on the car, but no, it's a completely different process. So that was really interesting to see. It's like, it's not you just buy something off the shelf, throw it on the car, paint it, and then it's done. So yeah, it's cool to see, like, when you see an F10 Prior Designs car that's done over in Europe or something, and then you see the one that you did, the styling differences that you've changed, like, make it look so much better. Like, the stuff that you took out of there, it needed to be taken out.
And that's what's funny. That's what I tell, like, a lot of the customers. I'm like, well, we can get this part. It'd be a good starting point. And they're like, what do you mean starting point? And I'm like, well, it's not perfect, and not that, anything that I would do would be perfect all the time, but that's the way I always looked at my own personal projects when I started. I was like, well, if I buy this part, at least I have something to start with, right?
Yep.
Because that's the biggest expense and challenge is you got to actually create a part in this business. So if you have something that can get you partially there, then you're like, well, I can find a way to change it or make it look better or find somebody that can, do something different to it. And that's what we did. That's what we did on the Camaro project too. That's why you were rewrapping them because the parts they delivered us before SEMA were garbage. And we know the company in California that makes this stuff, and they make a ton of stuff, and it's garbage.
Yeah, but that was just the flares, right? Because on the
Correct.
Camaro, you developed the lowers,
Yeah,
right?
so
all the
I did the whole
pieces.
aero kit, the wing, side skirts, and the front splitter.
Okay.
And then the flares, because it was built for a narrow body car, and then the flares were like an additional.
Okay.
So if somebody wanted to do a wide body, you could still do that. But that kit actually fit a narrow body too. And still have a bunch of those parts. So that's
And I think you have some mold somewhere.
I think I got some mold. They're probably in my garage, I
Right.
think. So anybody needs some 6th gen Camaro and they want to build fiberglass parts for 100 years, call me up. I'll give you a special
That'll be
deal.
like it's like when the '69 Camaro. Now everybody's restoring those. So once the
Right.
2016 Camaros go to the resto mods, we got the molds for
Yeah,
them.
we
So
got the first kit.
hold on to
We're
those
ready.
for 42 years.
But anyway, so we made a lot of changes on that wide body, and that's when I got Justin more involved in as far as wrapping the car, because we were painting the car white because the car was originally white, but we also wanted to color change it. So I think that's when I first reached out to you about wrapping the car. I had you come over, take a look at it,
Yep.
and that's kind of when Justin and I first started working together. So from that point, I'm going to let Justin take over, maybe from his perspective.
Okay.
What happened when? So I bring you over, show you this car that I'm working on. I want to let people in to a little bit of that side of that process. Some of the issues we had working through there. But
exactly. So you approached me. So we worked on the Camaro project, and then I think we had a couple riff raps or some stuff here and there, and then you approached me with the M5 project, and I don't think you knew at the time, but I'm a big BMW guy. I mean, I love M cars. So back in the day, I had a bunch of E30s and all that kind of stuff. So I was already like all in at that point, and you're like, let's do an M5. I'm like, heck yeah. But not knowing what it was going to take.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was just like, I was so excited to be on board with that project and get started on it. And then we started sourcing materials, and we wanted to get like kind of that battleship gray color. And there was only a couple manufacturers that had it. Now, it's pretty popular nowadays with the satin and the matte. But we found a company called APA, and they were an Italy-based company. And that was the first time I ever worked with that film. And that caused a lot of issues. First of all, first time ever wrapping a full wide body, door jams, all that stuff. So it was a whole different undertaking than what I was used to with just a typical color change that I would do at my shop. Was no door jams, quick as possible, just change the color of the car, that's it. This is a full show vehicle, so you want to open every door, and you want it to be one uniform color. So that was the biggest challenge of my career at that point. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I just want to be a part of this project. And so we ordered, a couple rolls of film because I knew I was going to be blowing through it. And before you know it, I was blowing through both those rolls like nothing, and kept having to order more. But that was a whole kind of process that I was so unfamiliar with, but I'm so glad that I was involved with it, because it taught me everything that I know now. Is like the way you would press me to make this panel, because you've seen wraps that look amazing, and you're like, you can do it. Like I know it can be done, whether that's your talent level is here and you can't get it, then I'm just going to find somebody else. But if you think you can get it, I'm going to trust you with it. And that's what you did. You gave me the time to do it, and I just took that time and tried to get everything as good as possible. But I think I rewrapped that front bumper, I want to say like 6 or 8 times. I'm not even kidding. I mean, I would wrap that bumper, go back the next day, and it's just popping up everywhere. It was a completely different type of film, so that was a learning curve as well. But being involved with that project and seeing it start to finish, I was like, holy cow! It was a lot to take in. But I remember when we debuted that car to the public at the auto show. I don't know, was that 2021?
No.
20. No,
It was before that,
COVID.
19?
Oh, yeah.
18 or 19.
Yeah. And I remember stepping back the night you revealed it, and we're just like, yeah. I mean, that was amazing to be part of that project. And that was the first sign of relief, because that was the biggest stressor of my, that's all I was thinking about, because I just kept redoing panels. And I just couldn't, perfect it the way that you wanted it, but it pushed me to be better. And I just spent many long nights there just making it as best as I possibly could. And the end outcome was not great. I mean, I still needed more time, but I think where we got that built our relationship incredibly strong just from that one project.
Right. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is that, the project that you're working on at the time is one thing, but what are you creating, in the long run? And that's ultimately what we're trying to do with each partner that we work with, is that we know it's not going to be perfect, right? Nothing...
Theoretically.
Very rarely is something perfect in the car game, and very rarely does it go off without a hitch, especially big scale projects. So it's about how you work through those and manage those and manage, your time and confrontation, and if you can ultimately get it done. And I don't want everybody to think like Justin and I working together at the beginning was easy, because it certainly wasn't. I think Justin can be the first to tell you, I don't know that his shop was set up to do the type of work that I was expecting him to do.
Well, we know that it was not. Definitely not. But.
And that's obviously I saw that walking in, right? But I'm also, I'm hard to work with at times, but I'm also I like to think that I'm fair in the situation where I trust somebody. So if I trust you. Sure, it might not be the best circumstances, but somebody gave me a shot at one point, right? Yeah. And it was not the best circumstances. And that shot gave me the opportunity to do what I do. So how I handled it, that was my responsibility. And that's the way that I kind of looked at, this opportunity for you. Because how old were you?
21.
Yeah.
I want to say 20, 21.
So you're a 21-year-old kid in a shop, and you're working on a project that... probably is the biggest project that you've worked on so far, at least from like a cost standpoint or maybe the size or scale. Not, taking away from some of the commercial work that you did growing up and stuff like that, but and an intricate, project like 100%. That. And you got somebody that's kind of in your grill about, hey, dude, you got to get this done. We've got some sort of a timeline, but we really got to make sure that it's done right, and can you do it? And I think I told Evan the story one time. There was a concern that I had, and I like to call it what do we call it? Like the Andy Poppin, right?
Oh, there's an Andy Poppin for sure. Everybody knows about it that works with us.
But there'll be times sometimes where I'm like, you know what? I like to be very polite through email. Hey, man, just touching base, seeing how everything's going. And, I might go a day without hearing anything. And the next day I'm like, hey, man, just touching base again. Want to make sure everything's good, And I'm big on communication. So if anybody that works for me, anybody that knows me, knows that I like to communicate. Because if you communicate enough, usually there's less to get lost in translation. Yep. And I'm guilty of over-communicating too, probably. But in this particular case, I think it was like a couple days, and I hadn't heard back from Justin. And I'm like, you know what? It's only 20 minutes away. I think I'm just going to pop in the car and show up, right. So I drove down to his shop, and it's nondescript. I think the door was locked.
I'm sure it was. Yeah, that was my famous thing. And when I was working on a project with Andy, I'd always lock the door because I knew Andy Poppin was coming in, so I would make sure I was locked down.
So I showed up, and I think I called him, and he didn't come to the door. Then I'm knocking on the door, and he answered the door, and he looked at me. He was like, "Hey," I was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" You're like, oh, no, not too much. I'm like, how's everything going? Oh, yeah. So you mind if I take a look at it? And Justin was kind of like, yeah, come on in. And he had this little office, where he had some of his stuff. So we go back into the shop. And actually, no, it was right there.
Yeah, the parts were right there.
That's right, right. I looked down, and side skirts and stuff were not wrapped, right? And I was like, so what's going on with this stuff, man? And I think Justin was working on 65 different other projects too, so he's not a great manager of his time. At least manager back then.
Definitely not.
Times and organization and stuff, and was pulled probably 20 different ways. So my stuff was just kind of sitting there for the time. And he knew we didn't have like a pressing timeline, but there was a timeline to get it done because there was a lot that had to happen after it got wrapped. So he was like, yeah, man, I just didn't get to it yet. And I'm like, listen, and this is my, this is the partial, I'm on the edge kind of response, but I'm like, dude, stuff's got to be done. I said, I understand you got a lot of other stuff going on, but we talked about this. I'm not trying to be a dick or anything, but you got to get on this stuff. It's got to be done. It's got to be done right. Can you do the job or not? If you're not going to do the job, I'll take the parts right now. I'll just take the parts. How about that? And Justin said, no. I'm going to do it. And I said, listen, dude, you ain't got it. You don't have to do it. He was like, no, I got this. And I said, okay. here's the deal. You got it. That means you're going to get it done. You're going to get it done right, and we're going to be good, right? And he said, yeah, that's it. Let me do it. And I was like, okay. And again, giving somebody the opportunity, even though in that particular case, I know some guys that would just walk in and take their stuff and leave. They're not even going to talk about it.
I mean, realistically, I don't even know why you gave me the opportunity. I'm like a 21-year-old kid, and I got these parts that you expected to be wrapped a week ago, and they're just sitting there unwrapped, but you're like, yeah, I'll give them another shot. But.
Well, to be upfront, and this is being completely transparent, is I needed the opportunity to make a connection with somebody that would do that. And unless you go through those, how do you find somebody that can do that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So that's also, you and I have talked about a lot of people that I've worked with, right?
Yep.
It's went the other way. And we get burned. It costs us money. We lose parts. Something gets damaged. There's every story of how it didn't work out. But then there's the stories where it does. And when it does work out, then what happens from there? It just continues to like snowball and build. And that's really what, we try to preach that to Evan, right? Like, you're going to come in here and put all your time, effort, all this stuff into it. Don't walk away without taking advantage of the opportunities that are going to come to you, because we've seen that happen. I don't know what it is, whether it's we just get comfortable or we don't want to press ourselves or we lack the internal motivation. When you don't have a boss knocking on your door telling you, hey, dude, you got to get going. It's easy for somebody to be like, I don't really need to do that.
Yep. But also prioritizing jobs that are making you more money too. That was a big factor with me, is I was always focused around the money. It's like, I can get, 6 of these roof wraps done, and that's going to give me X amount of dollars. That stuff's going to be secondary because I'm not making as much money on it.
Right.
But I didn't realize the opportunity back then.
Yep, absolutely. And that's something that you got to go through, right, to learn that. And once you go through it or you see it, that's the biggest thing. Seeing the process through and seeing how it can affect or things go up and down, that's like going into the story that when you and I start working together and you come here and then you start to see how everything works inside of here.
Yep.
Compared to what you saw,
from the outside.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's a very different animal. And that's the thing that as partners come in or people that we work with, they learn us, they see how we operate. That's where we've seen the stuff just skyrocket, right? Because they're like, holy cow, all right, I see what you guys are doing, see what you're going after. I support you, let's do it, So that project, Justin said he'll do it. And what did he do? He did it. We went to the body shop a couple times. He had to redo some things at the body shop. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he did exactly what he said he'd do. And that's exactly why he's sitting here today, is because not every project's been perfect. And since then, we've had plenty of projects that we've had to redo things on or we weren't happy with. But getting to that hump or that hurdle and getting over it was a lot easier, right? Like a lot of the times, you're stopping it before I even say anything. Current day, you're definitely stopping it before anybody sees it, and the investment that you put into making sure that your job is on par is the same as what I try to do in my business. And that was really important because we have to be, same level.
Yep.
Justin's throwing away hundreds of dollars of film, PPF, vinyl, every time he wraps a car because he's unhappy with what he sees. Not me.
Yep.
He's saying, this is not what we put out there. This is not our level of work, and I'm not going to do it. And for me, I'd rather take this off, throw it out, than somebody stand at my car for hours and look at it and pick it apart.
Yeah, that was another tough thing for me to get through too, is right when I was starting with you, I was trying to grow my business, the best I possibly could. In every job I was doing with you, I was technically losing money because I was ruining panels. It wasn't as perfect as I wanted it or you wanted it, and so I would just peel it off and redo it, and it was costing me money every time. But then seeing the opportunity, when we go to events and stuff like that, and I was very far on the outside then, and just to see a little snippet of it, I was like, that's why I'm still doing it. It's just for that. It's like when I'm doing a color change on a Jeep, I'm not getting that same experience,
Exactly.
So it's completely different. But yeah, that's what people don't really realize is the commitment you have to have is you have to sacrifice the money.
Yep.
That's the only way you can do it, is you have to, burn through that material, make sure you build your skills up. It's like you can go to all the trainings you want, all that stuff, get certified, but it's like there's levels to it. And if you have somebody like you pushing your work, you're going to get insanely good really quick.
And for those of you saying, well, why would you do something and have it cost you money? Why wouldn't you not make money on that job? Let me put it very simple for everybody. Each business has a marketing budget, right? Each business has investments that they make that don't make them money, but it earns them business.
Yep.
So if we're getting better at perfecting our craft, what's your investment into your business? If you're not, it's not costing you anything to operate. Are you doing the best for your business that you probably should be? What do you think these wide bodies are? You think I think people think we make a bunch of money on these. This is strictly just a testament to what we're capable of.
It's a showcase of capabilities.
Exactly. So when you're wrapping a car like that, somebody walks in and sees the wrap you did on this car, and you made no money on that, but people see that car and they want their car wrapped, and we get 10 cars wrapped because they saw this car.
Exactly.
And they want to pay what you're worth. Mm-hmm. They're not interested in the guy that's hustling on the corner, dirty garage, stuff everywhere. Just wrap this and not the jams. Those aren't our customers.
Yep.
Our customers that want to appreciate the level of detail and work that you have done to perfect your craft.
And it took a while to transition into that too. It's
Absolutely.
Not easy because you don't see it.
Right,
That's
absolutely.
Especially for what I do. It's like you don't see that every day.
Yep.
So like I'm comparing myself to all the other rap guys around, and I was like, oh, I feel like I'm pretty good, if not like the best one around. But then you're like, no, dude, this sucks. I'm like, what do you mean this sucks? I'm like, this is what I got. But then you just got to go through it and just know that there's really no limits.
Yep.
Just keep pushing yourself and just burning through it.
Yep. So as we finished that car and the car's revealed at the auto show, we kind of come back. Let me rewind and go back into where I am at Label at that time. Okay. As we come back from the auto show, that car's done. We've got the Camaro in there. There is where we kind of decide, all right, what's the business model gonna look like? So when we were done with the M5, I kind of got back to the shop and I was like, all right, this car really turned out good. It had a great response from everybody. People were kind of very impressed by it, especially that it came local, and that was the first car that got done inside the small shop. People then started to reach out with smaller jobs here and there,
Just based off that car?
Yeah, just based off that car. And then we had redone the wide body, redone all the flares, and got the styling all right from the SEMA car. So I felt pretty good about that car. So if somebody saw that car, you could tell it was really well put together. But again, I didn't have any like really exciting car in the shop until I think I started to get a couple 911s in that I did tune and some exhaust on. And then a couple R8s followed that, which, here in West Michigan, R8s and 911s are very common. R8's like the conservative supercar, right? Like
right.
The one that everybody gets.
It's like the Huracan of LA.
It is, yeah. Yeah, instead of a Huracan, it might be a little too in your face.
Too flashy.
Yeah, we get an R8.
Right.
But great cars.
Yep.
And started to kind of get my word out there. But what was challenging from the start was all of the educating that needed to be done. So in West Michigan, for you guys that aren't from here, I would say it's a much more conservative market. There's a bunch of money, bunch of cars, but a lot of stock cars, primarily because there isn't the aftermarket influence in the area. So that's when we had to start really teaching our clients, why would you spend money on the car? What would you do to it? Why does it make it better? What's good? What's bad? Because if you jump on the internet, for a lot of the stuff, there isn't a lot of options out there unless you know what you're looking for. But you can also get lost, kind of in the sea of stuff that's on the internet. So then that really took quite a bit of time teaching everybody, and I wanted to start doing smaller events like at the shop. So just organically, I think that stuff started to grow on its own, but it was a slow, real slow process.
But in the background, Cars and Coffee was still crushing it.
Oh yeah. Cars and Coffee,
growing and growing.
Yeah, Cars and Coffee was always doing its thing, and I never even advertised or said, if you guys know Cars and Coffee, I don't even have me on any other Cars and Coffee stuff. So a lot of people didn't even realize that I was the one that organized Cars and Coffee.
Right.
That was something that I just kept quiet because I really wasn't doing it for that. I was doing it just for the culture side of it. Because going back to the conservative side is nobody was bringing their cars outside. So I'm like, dude, what is happening?
I know.
And there's something that stuck with me. There was a business owner that came up to me at one of the events, and he had I think he had a 458, a new one, and he had a McLaren too. And he was like, he came up to me and just quietly pulled me aside and shook my hand. He was like, "Hey, Andy, I want to thank you." I'm like, "For what?" He's like, "For putting these events on." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's no problem." He's like, "No, I'm being serious." He's like, "In all the years of being over here, like we want to take, like me and my buddies want to take our cars out. We want to go downtown. We want to hang out. But you would be surprised at some of the stuff we hear downtown." And I'm like, "Well, what do you hear?" He's like, "Well, we would park and people are like, oh, you need to spend your money on, the car. Oh, what are you trying to compensate for? Like a lot of negativity surrounding
That's
it."
so frustrating.
Yeah, which is crazy to me because, like you're always going to have some dumb people, that are just rude, trying to take jabs at you, whatever. But the way that people decide to spend their money, I mean, ultimately it's their decision.
Yep.
They made it, whether they
Right.
earned it, whether they were given it, whatever the case
It
is.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. No. And that was the challenge. And that resonated because he was like, you gave us a place to kind of take our cars and they're appreciated, which was strange to him. Like
That's just so crazy
Isn't
to
that
me
nuts?
to think about.
I know,
And
right?
now it's completely flipped because of the events.
Yeah, and people love it. Like we've had kids take senior pictures out there. There's weddings. Like people look forward to that. Just like any other major festival or something that's going on. And for us, it's just like, of course, we love it. Like that's what we would do. But that always stuck with me because I'm like, I can't believe like here's an adult, somebody that I would be like, hey man, this guy's got an awesome car collection. And he has no place to take his car, nobody to enjoy it with, nobody to just go out and share it with. And it wasn't about, hey, look at me, because those guys usually they're hidden, right? They're not even by their cars. So they just enjoy people's reaction to the cars or see them. And if a kid said, hey, can I get in there? They were like, yeah, jump in.
Yeah, that's what's so cool.
Yeah. And I was like, hey man, hold on. You don't let it, because me, I probably wouldn't do that. I'm going to be upfront with you. I would be like, no, I don't want everybody in the car, maybe controlled, but, and that was really cool to see the opposite reaction. So now, like the owners take the cars out, they're excited to get the public involved. Public's like, holy cow, I can get involved. I can see this stuff. Yeah. So it really went hand in hand. I don't think anybody really predicted it to kind of grow like that. That would have been best case scenario. But that's really what happened. So as that continued to grow, that had nothing to do with Label.
Yep.
Label was just my thing in my back pocket that I'm working on. And, Cars and Coffee kind of remain separate from that. And it was something that it provided a great, I guess, anchor in the area because I didn't feel very connected to West Michigan. I felt the people were different. I had some negative interactions with people when I first started, the common, hey, I support you, man. We'll always be here for you. I want to be a part of anything that you do. And as soon as, you have something to offer or you need a hand, those people are like,
where they at?
Hey, see ya. I'm over here. Which is, that it kind of is what it is, and you find the people that really support you, through those times. But, when you start something off like that in a new area, all alone, my family's on the east side, sold everything to get here. I was very frustrated at the beginning. I was angry, and I remember a couple times coming home to Christina and being like, yeah, I don't know that I really want to be here. I don't know why I would be here. It seems like a different area for me. But Cars and Coffee kept me kind of connected.
Yeah.
And the people that I met through it was awesome. So
because you built so many relationships through that potentially led to clients, at least people supporting Label, once the doors opened.
Exactly. And they supported me. That's what it came down to. As I met a lot of the people, it really didn't matter what I did. They were like, I like you. I like what you stand for, and I want to support you. If you need anything in the future, let me know. If I can introduce you to somebody, let me know. That's really what it was. It wasn't about, I'm going to give you some money and you do something for me. It was more like, hey, if you think of something that I might fit in, let me know, or you need a hand getting introduced to somebody. And that's how I met people from like DGRI. That's how I met people from the city. It was literally just forming connections and those people trusting me to refer me. And then it becomes my responsibility to hold up my end of the bargain. Whenever you're referred to somebody, Evan, and this is why I'm hard on you, I'm like, listen, you got a Label shirt on, right? We're out here doing something, and we introduce you to somebody. We expect that you treat them not more important than like a normal client, but you treat them differently because you know that that's an extension of a relationship that you created, right? So if we introduce a customer to you and you go out and you act like an idiot, or you're late, or you don't deliver, or you do some work and you don't deliver on the work after the customer pays you, then there's some issues that show up. And ultimately, you know whose responsibility that is?
Mine.
Wrong. Mine.
Well, okay, right.
Because
Yep,
you
right.
have the label shirt on, pal.
Right.
Now, if this is your own customer, that's
Yeah,
right.
right.
You wrote, you wrote your ticket there. You take care of it. But when we introduce you to somebody,
Yeah.
and then you falter, they're not going to hold you necessarily as accountable as me, and vice versa. I hold myself accountable. So if you went out and did something that I was responsible for, I would stand up for that, because that was my responsibility to pass you off.
Yep.
And there's a lot of trust that goes into that. So we have to trust you, and you trust, where we kind of steer you in that direction.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, man, it worked out as far as staying in the area, but still it was a very slow start. And that car working with you, the BMW and the Camaro, that's really just the beginning of what Label started as, and then where we kind of went from there has been on a really strong trajectory each year. That's almost doubled.
Yeah. And it happened quick.
It did. I always said, I had a 5-year plan. They're always like, oh, you got to give your business 5 years before you make any money. And the fortunate position for us is that we haven't taken any money from the business, and we continue to, build our growth, which is important for me, is because I want to remain, pushing, I think, what our boundaries are. And the way you do that is not being cash strapped, chasing the dollar. So that's why you've seen these projects come to life and seen some of the relationships, is because we're not in a position where we're like, hey, we got to take this job and we got to put this stuff off to the side because we got to, make rent next month,
right,
or something
exactly.
like that. So I think we've done a good job to get to where we are, but after that first couple projects together, I think from there we can kind of paint the picture on how we got to where we are today.
Yeah. So it transitioned kind of from the M5. What was the next big project? Was it the Huracan?
Yeah, the Performante.
Yeah.
Performante.
Yep. So, and you guys have seen the Performante on the site. Again, this was an amazing opportunity. So this would have been the biggest ticket item, to come in the door. I did a lot of other stuff. I did I think the Raptor was probably simultaneous with
Okay.
the Performante, which that was a insane build for a Raptor
That's
too.
sweet, yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
And we can talk a little bit about that. But the Performante was one that I got, and I was like, all right, now we can really do something special here. This is one where I want to show kind of what my flavor is. And the customer came to me with the same open expectation of, you tell me what we should do.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? And, our dialogue's always unique with the customer. It's that I always say we're not order takers. We are, we want to be respected for what we do. So you come in and you might have a vision, or you might have an idea of colors that you like, or what you're trying to accomplish with the car. And then you pass it off to us. And I'll spend, 3, 4, 5 days putting together, packages that I think make the car unique, make the car special, accomplish what you're trying to do with the car, but also show what Label is and what we do, right? So whether that's through texture, color, wheels, all that other stuff, that's kind of all put together in that basket. And that Performante was the first one that I kind of got to look at as a whole and be like, all right, this is a big canvas, so what can we do on here that's unique? And that was
start new relationships too.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's how we started doing the 1016 stuff.
Yep.
Reached out to Peter, and Peter was in Michigan at the time, and we talked through that. And obviously, we were the first Performante, I think, in the Northeast with a
for
1016 kit.
Yeah.
That was also the relationship with Brixton, where we came up with the wheels. I did the center locking lugs, which nobody ever does, which was a challenge. So those had to be blasted and done color coded and still be able to be installed in the car and not chip off. Nobody does that because it's a pain to do. But I thought it was important on the car.
Yep.
And then we did, I think, what'd you do? You did the Performante script on the back for that car?
We did the Italian flag.
that's right.
Chopped up in different colors, and then we did a couple other accents. But actually, now that I'm thinking about that car, I think that was the first PPF job that I worked on with you, because you were subbing out your PPF work with somebody else at the time, and I was just kind of getting into it. I was doing it here and there, but I wasn't, up to the level. I still wanted to dial it in more, and that was the first. I'm pretty sure that was the first project that you kind of let me go on and PPF it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you were over at the shop at one point with it too. The hood portion of it, I remember doing that. I think we took some photos of you doing it in there.
And that was tricky too, because that was my first time doing bulk install. Everything else was always pre-cut. I had a plotter and just plot and lay, and that was all the 1016 stuff. So there's no templates for it.
Right.
So it was.
But I knew you could do it. I mean, that's shot. That's easy. See, Justin's got good hands, and he's got patience. I lack both.
Right.
I got hands.
You have good hands, but
I got good hands, but not fine good hands. Like
you can throw a ball.
Correct. I'm good at throwing. But that's really where I was like, well, if he can do vinyl, I understand PPF's a different animal. But I've seen guys work with PPF and they did not have the touch, right? And I saw that's where all the errors were happening. When the people I saw worked with PPF were trying to manipulate the film too much, right? Trying to strong arm it, and you can't do that. That causes. So for me, when I watched you do it, it seemed like you understood the complexity of vinyl, which stretches more, right, and is maybe easier, but sometimes harder to work with. That you just needed to learn the material.
And once you wet apply.
And once you learned that, I feel like the rest of the stuff is easy because I don't know. Maybe I just looked at you and said you could figure this out because I saw how nice the vinyl wraps, were coming out, and compared to what I saw. Again, you're not even knowing this because you're not comparing yourself to anything because you're not seeing anything else, other than what's kind of in the bubble. So when I'm looking at your stuff, I'm like, this dude's got it. So, if he can figure out vinyl to this level, and we had already went through some learning curve stuff there, and you're like, I'm going to go after PPF, then I was like, heck yeah, let's give it a shot.
That's the other interesting thing is I didn't necessarily have an interest in getting into PPF at that time. That's when color change was just popping off, and that stuff was so popular. Everybody wanted their car done, so I was just focused on that. And then the PPF thing came, and now if you look at it, like probably 70% of my work is PPF, right? Which is just huge. Everybody wants it, which is it's crazy. But
well, it's a really good job, and I think we'll be able to for those of you that have seen PPF. There's good PPF, and then there's great PPF. And here's the reason why I hated PPF, and I never wanted to do it, is I'm old school. So I'm old school car guy. Like anything I put on the car that takes away from the factory finish on the car, especially a gloss car, I'm not putting it on the car, just plain and simple. And I'm not into the whole ceramic coating. So nothing against the ceramic coaters out there. I know there's a time and place for it. Maybe it's on my truck, maybe it's on the trailer. We put it on the trailer. Wheels, but if you want to protect your car, you put PPF on it, plain and simple. Because I always use this example of being old school, like cut and polish guy. Somebody leans on the car, they scratch my ceramic coated car. Now I polish the side of the car. Well, guess what? I got no ceramic coating on it. Now what do I have to do? I didn't put the ceramic coating on, so I got to take it back to my guy to put the ceramic coating on it. Even if he does it for free, it's inconvenient. And at the end of the day, if you have a car PPF'd and you drive it and you're used to it, you're never driving a car without PPF. From ease of cleaning, the bugs, the not worrying about rock chips, not worrying about somebody leaning up against a car or putting their bag on it. It's insane what it can do. And we've seen it in track applications. Save MC20s several times.
Even like minor fender benders that'll protect.
That's happened as well. It's wild.
It's insane.
I've actually used what's our compound that we use?
Sonex.
The Sonex. I used that Cut Max on PPF once because I swear this PPF was completely demolished. Something fell on it, and it looked like it was gouged or whatever. And I just kept lightly doing it and making sure that I didn't smoke the PPF. And it took out all of the damage on the PPF, and it was like it was never there. And when I had somebody look at it, this was before you, they were like, "Yeah, you definitely got to replace that panel." And I was like, "Well, what the heck? I'm just going to give it a shot because worst case scenario, if I ruin it, we're going to take it off and redo it." And it came out complete. And I'm like,
"It's crazy."
Okay. I'm in.
Yeah,
so as long as we can find a film that is clear and it's applied the right way, dude, you can't beat it. And for guys that want to drive their cars, especially in Michigan, because our roads are brutal, having PPF on a car is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
So.
The other thing too, when you're installing carbon, I don't know if everybody knows this,
Correct.
but we apply PPF on everything. Normally it's bulk because there's no templates for any of the aftermarket carbon stuff, but when you add the PPF on top of carbon, because like you'll get some deviations in the clear and stuff with some of the carbon parts, but once you lay the PPF over there, it makes it laser straight. You can drive the piss out of the car, and it's not going to damage it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Well, I think we're going to wrap this episode up. We kind of jumped around to a couple different topics, but hopefully give you guys a little more insight of where we were in that particular time period. I think from that point forward, maybe we'll touch a little bit more on the projects that we had worked through, maybe the finalization of the Performante, talking about the Raptor, and then moving down with things that were going on behind the scenes at that time too, to let people know. So what was the vision for Label as you started to work through a couple other projects? We went through our first auto show, where that relationship has kind of grown into, and really show people some of that abbreviated path of how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, and I think building this building, talking a little bit about that, and then diving right into the wide body stuff. I think that's going to be super interesting, showing kind of a little bit of a glimpse of how you create such a masterpiece.
Right. I don't know if it's a masterpiece,
it
but it's something. I like it a lot.
I think we all do.
I'd say it's there.
Thanks, Kevin. And we're going to get you into some episodes.
Yeah, right.
But for right now, you're producing, right?
Correct.
You control my levels as I go up and down.
Yeah.
I doubt it. But we appreciate everything that you're doing. Evan's actually the one producing the podcast and putting everything together for us. And he's really integral on how we actually got this started. Justin and I have been talking about doing this forever, but we also didn't want to do it half-ass and put something out that wasn't at least interesting. And our whole goal of this is just to find a group of viewers that want to learn a little bit more about, what's behind the scenes here at Label, and what kind of makes us tick. And then obviously what's coming in the future, and maybe share some secret and some upcoming things, maybe even show some products that we're working on to everybody. So I think it's got a lot of opportunity, and we thank Evan a lot for putting in his time here, and we just got to make sure he doesn't flunk out of school.
Correct.
Right.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the next episode.
Right, see ya.
Thanks for tuning in.